Hi, my name is John Anderson. I'm currently a structural engineer at Robert Stillman Associates in New York City. My background is focused on sustainable building. So I've done a master's degree at UC Berkeley where I focused on sustainable concrete technologies. And then before that I was a Fulbright Fellow in Berlin at the TU University, the Technical University there, where I looked at the interlap between sustainability architecture, sustainability engineering, and how that forms sustainable design. So that's really where I'm coming from. So the general idea with the preservation community currently is that preservation is sustainable. End of story. But what we're really trying to do is move sustainability into preservation so that preservationists can move from being a passive participant in the sustainability design movement to really being leaders. And then by being leaders, we can illustrate that historic buildings, historic neighborhoods have a lot to teach new buildings and have a lot to teach policymakers. So when policy members, administrations think about they want to do green building, they'll look to preservation for guidance. The Picantico Proclamation started by a group of 28 experts from different fields, from architects to engineers to business people to environmentalists, anyone who's affected by green building and who has an interest in this. And we really sat down and thought about how does preservation interlap and play a role with sustainability. And then we also thought about where are some conflicts there and how can we address those conflicts. Okay. The background and the argument that we're really forming to make this case for green design, for sustainability, or the climate change imperative, the economic imperative, and to explain the climate change is pretty straightforward. The economic imperative is really changing to a green economy, so moving away from resource-dependent, non-renewable fuels and building practices to renewable practices, to a practice of conservation. And the last one's equity. As we see the world transform in the last 10 years moving forward, we're seeing that more people have a higher standard of living, and then that's requiring more resources. So we need to think about, especially here in the US, how can we get more from less?
Okay.
So exactly, the principles are really lessons that can be learned from preservation and applied to green building. So these are examples: foster culture of reuse. We currently have a culture of consumption. So we can transfer to an idea of reusing something, valuing something, and seeing the bigger picture in something. And one of the other big interesting things is to update the sustainability aspects of preservation. So like we were saying before, that preservation really doesn't shy away from sustainability, but really grabs onto it and takes a lead and leads the movement.
Okay.
So the Picantico laid out the essential principles and guidelines and the imperatives for integrating sustainability and preservation. And then we took it another step and really refined it. And we said, okay, we have all these sustainability concerns: economic, environmental, social. Let's focus on the most pressing right now, and that's climate change. So it's not everything, but we're just focusing on one task. And then the question really is, it's really one statement: how can preservation align with climate mitigation strategies? It's very, very definitive and very clear what the goal is.
Okay.
And then what we're looking for is how can that come about? How can we realize this objective? It's obviously a big challenge, but I think what we've been doing, and we're essentially an advisory board to other organizations, and other organizations participate with us. But what's come out of this is there has been legislation written that's been proposed to the House. In manners like this, there have been meetings with the DOE, the Department of Energy, the Environmental Protection Agency. So really taking our message to policymakers and saying, hey, look, preservation is a way to reduce climate change, and we need to address this. I think one lesson we can really learn is we talk about existing buildings. And existing buildings emit 40% of the CO2 emissions in the US. But historic buildings, buildings that are listed on landmark registries, are very small. It's 1% in New York City. Mm-hmm. So if you have 1%, you can't make a big change. But if the preservation movement went beyond museum-type buildings, one-of-a-kind vernacular buildings, to really being the spokesperson for all existing buildings, then we've really taken a big branch and we said, we are the people that care for buildings, we know how to maintain buildings, we know how to increase the longevity of buildings. And then we have a big area to contribute. And then people come to us to say, can you help us with this problem? The big one that we've been thinking about, and it's a personal interest of mine, is research. Because I think a lot of people that are enacting green initiatives, green goals. So anyone from the presidential administration to localities such as New York City, Michael Bloomberg, these people are interested in achieving these environmental goals. And I think what they don't have now that they could use are tools to help them see that existing buildings are a key in that solution. So I don't think people are excluding existing buildings right now. People just they don't have the data available to show that these are the areas that one really should be focusing on. So we really have two challenges. One's an external communication, the preservation community communicating with other people doing green building, and the second one's an internal. How does the preservation community deal with challenges such as window replacement, operational energy improvement? And these are really dealt with traditionally through the National Park Service standards and guidelines. And what we really see a need for is guidance from such an overarching body to really provide guidance on that. So if the homeowner that's interested in preservation and interested in sustainability can have some place to go to and really get some knowledge from that perspective. And I think a lot of it's just talking to people. So I think it's moving beyond just preservationists talking to themselves. I gave a talk recently to the U.S. Green Building Council, and there we were essentially saying that reusing a building is recycling a building. And one of my friends went to the talk, and she's open to these ideas, and she's green friendly, and she said, I had never thought about that. Mm-hmm. And now essentially she's on board with us. So I think it's just presenting the idea to people in an objective, fair manner with data and research that shows that we're not just pushing a different agenda, but it's really the case at hand. And I think that helps bring people on board. And we can see this through examples. When you're thinking about urban planning, you think about the real goal now with the new urbanist movement is to build livable, sustainable communities where you have grocery shop, mom and pop shops, you have restaurants, you can walk everywhere. Mm-hmm. Where are these ideas coming from? These ideas are coming from historic districts. Historic districts are doing them now. Well, the problem is historic districts aren't selling themselves or branding themselves in that manner in flight. So it's really an idea of perspectives and really seeing where these new ideas are coming from. And often we see they're coming from the past. So the past is looking forward. I think what we can do, we can get a lot of information out to people. We can put something up about replacement windows. We can have dialogue and forum discussions online. And then a lot of resources. If somebody needs resources to make their case, if somebody's saying, well, I think this whole building has some value, and I want to go talk to somebody that's in charge about this, how do I do that? How do I have the information to share this with other people without having to do a doctoral dissertation on embodied energy? Preservation is really about the community and preserving the community. And the community is made up of different people doing different actions. And then that's what really creates the community around them. And I think that's what historic preservation tries to promote. Yeah. So we from Nashville, we drafted an agenda, an action item agenda, and this became the Sustainability and Preservation Policy Task Force, or Spitfire for short. Mm-hmm. And then this is essentially an advisory council to other organizations working on issues of sustainability and preservation. So we provide guidance on implementing sustainability into preservation, and also as a forum for feedback and holding organizations accountable. When we're saying we want to do these things, we're really there to help people achieve the goals and really move forward in the process. I mean, National Trust for Historic Preservation has been with us from the start. Friends at NCPTT has been from the start. And then also APT is involved, AIA is involved, and we have the American Council for Historic Preservation. So we really have everyone that's involved, National SHPOs. So everyone that's really involved in preservation is getting this picture. And this is really a place to come for assistance and guidance.
Okay.